جيناكي
It's the Metro on WDET. I'm Robyn Vincent. And this song is called Ginaki by Abdelgadir Salim, a Sudanese singer. Salim sang about many things, chief among them, his homeland of Sudan. He's singing in Arabic because Sudan is, after all, part of the Arab world. Right now, nearly 14 million Sudanese people are displaced, the largest displacement crisis in the world. The United States government has called what's happening in the country a genocide. A United Nations fact-finding mission used the same word. It described a coordinated campaign by the paramilitary Rapid Support Forces against the Zagawa 4 communities of Darfur. And still, in this country, there is widespread silence on the crisis in Sudan. Even here on the Metro, where we don't shy away from discussing global conflict, we haven't been talking about Sudan. My guest today is a Sudanese American who has been trying for much of her life to say something about that silence in poetry, in her community organizing, in her work at the Arab American National Museum, where she is the only Sudanese person and the only Black person on staff. She was born in Sudan, raised in Saudi Arabia, and came to the U.S. with her family in 2007. Her name is Khadega Mohammed, and the music we were listening to is by her uncle. Again, that's Abdelgadir Salim. Khadega, welcome.
Thank you so much, Robyn. Thank you for having me.
Before we talk about the silence over Sudan, which is really what has inspired this conversation, I want to ask you to take us somewhere. When you close your eyes and you picture Sudan, the Sudan that belongs to you, what do you see? What do you hear? What do you taste?
That is a beautiful question. I grew up spending my summers in Sudan. We would go every year from Saudi Arabia. And I just remember sitting around with my family. In Sudan, we don't each eat on a plate. We all share a large platter together. And so 3 times throughout the day, we would all gather around the large platter. We would eat all in one. And so I remember that vividly. I remember the scent of like the water in the air, the saltiness in the air of the Nile River. We would spend our evenings there. We would drink chai, which is tea. We would have lively conversations. We'd just break out in poetry and in music. I remember playing with my cousins. We'd spend our whole childhood outside. Like we were never indoors. I remember my uncle, who we just heard. He had recently passed away. Allah yarhamu. May God rest his soul. I remember going into his office and asking him to teach me how to play the oud. I'm getting really emotional about it because, Sudan is all about the people in it for me. And it feels like every time I go back to Sudan, it's different from when it was before. That is because the people we have loved have passed on. And now the people that I love have left Sudan. And so the memories remain just as memories. It feels like something that is so distant. And I'm not sure I'll be able to gather in the same way again in our home. We all lived in one home together, multiple families, and, it was so lively. And so I have those memories of Sudan, just very fond memories. And I hope we can, experience that once again.
To hold those kinds of memories in your heart and in your head sounds like two things at once: beautiful and hopeful and also devastating.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And you dream of a day where perhaps you could go back to Sudan and experience those things again. What is your understanding of what is happening right now in your home country? Why is there a genocide happening?
Greed. If you're not aware, Sudan is one of the richest countries in resources in the world. It was nicknamed at once the food basket of the world. It could feed the whole world. Our soil is so rich. We have abundant natural resources. Sudan is actually the #1 producer of Arabic gum, which is used in all sorts of beauty products and pharmaceutical products. Sudan also controls a large portion of the Nile. And so there's a lot of water diplomacy when it comes to that. And so you see greed. Greed has led us to this moment of people trying to take over those resources, take over. We have a lot of gold. And so we know that there's a lot of outside influence, such as the UAE, to name one of the largest.
United Arab Emirates.
Exactly.
Which is funding the paramilitary rapid support forces, which the U.S. and the UN say are committing genocide against the Zagawa and 4 communities of Darfur. Do I have that right?
Absolutely. And interestingly, the U.S. is involved indirectly because it is providing the arms to the UAE, which in turn is then selling the arms to the rapid support forces who are committing this horrific genocide. People like to say that this is a civil war, but it is not a civil war. You know, they like to label it as just another African civil war, just Black people having another problem within themselves. But that is the furthest from the truth. It is 2 military groups who are fighting for power at the expense of the Sudanese people. There is no consent of the Sudanese people to be involved in this.
We're going to get into more of the reasons for the American silence, but you brought up one of them that I want to get your take on. Americans seem to be more passionate when they can follow the money. For example, when we look at what's happening right now in Gaza, it is no secret that the American funds that are flowing to Israel are massive. Israel receives more money than any other nation from the U.S. And so it seems that that has helped to spur some outrage.
Right.
Do you think that if more people understood the connection, the fact that the U.S. supports the United Arab Emirates and the United Arab Emirates is supporting a group that the U.S. says is committing genocide, if that were clearer to people, do you think there would be more outrage in the U.S.?
I would hope so. But honestly, I wouldn't hold my breath on it. I think when this is just a truth base of the matter, when we see that there is a conflict that's happening to an African country, when it's happening to Black people, oftentimes it just doesn't cause the same amount of outrage, even if the world knew the truth and knew everything, even if they knew the money, following the money, it just doesn't cause the same outrage for people when they see Black bodies getting murdered.
So you make some direct connections between racism, racism here, racism in other places throughout the world, and then you could even make it more nuanced and call it colorism within the Arab world too.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, to us Sudanese people, there's nothing new. We are used to the Arab world ignoring our suffering and not supporting us. You'd find, especially after the 2019 revolution, when, you know, there was the uprising against the Sudanese dictator Omar al-Bashir, we did not find any support from our Arab brothers and sisters. And so you'd find that a lot of us now struggle with identifying as Arab because clearly we're not Arab enough, right? And so we kind of now refer to ourselves as just Sudanese.
This brings me to when you went back to Sudan in 2018, because that was the year before the revolution that ousted Omar al-Bashir. You talked about something that happened on that trip, being treated for the first time as American because of the passport in your hand. So in this moment, you're back in Sudan. You don't necessarily feel like you are fully Sudanese. You don't feel like you're necessarily fully a part of the Arab world. And you haven't felt like you're necessarily American. And you're back in your home country being told, oh, no, that is exactly what you are. You're American. You're not one of us.
Right.
What shifted for you during that trip?
You know, I was born in Sudan. And for the 12 years that I was outside of Sudan here in America, I never once claimed America. I always claimed my Sudani roots and I claimed that proudly. But when I went back to Sudan for the first time after 12 years and we landed in the Khartoum airport, and then that incident happened where I went to the counter for citizens, and the guy at the counter is like, you're not in this line. You're supposed to be in the foreigners line because of this blue passport that you have.
That moment right there had to be jarring.
Oh, it rocked me. I was, baffled, bamboozled. Like, what do you mean? This whole time I've claimed my Sudani identity, but here you are telling me that you are not Sudanese because of this paper that you hold, because of this passport that you have. That completely shifted my perspective on everything. And then I noticed that, I was slightly treated differently because they see me as the Amerikia, the American girl. And I was like, but I'm not. What are you guys talking about?
And then there are the things that come with that, with you being the Amerikia, which is privilege and power. And so then all of a sudden it creates even more space for you in your home country. Now it is like people are not maybe feeling comfortable being themselves with you. They see a power dynamic, no?
Absolutely. 100%. And interestingly, during that trip, my cousins and I ended up taking a trip to the UAE from Sudan to Dubai. This was before everything happened. And when we were checking into the airport at Dubai airport, my cousins went in front of me and they had the Sudanese passport. And the people at the counter were treating them in such a rude way. Like they weren't welcoming to them at all or nothing. They said, all right, here you go. Keep going.
They shooed them
Shoot them away. And then when I went to the counter and they saw my American passport, immediately everybody just perked up. Welcome to Dubai. Here's a complimentary SIM card. We hope you enjoy your stay. And my cousins were looking at me and I was looking at my cousins and I was blown away by this. That American passport and the privilege that came with it that I saw firsthand then and there, honestly, I had no response to that. My cousins were shocked. They were like, can you get us a SIM card as well? And I went back and they gave me extra SIM cards. And for the first time, I recognized privilege. I recognized what privilege means in that context. And it's all because of this passport. And so absolutely there's a way that then after that experience that my cousins were treating me a little bit different as the Amerikia, because clearly we just saw how well you were treated in comparison to us. But with that privilege comes also a large sense of guilt for myself in knowing that I just simply got lucky. And my family wasn't afforded the same.
It was the lottery, and you're watching the way power moves in this world.
Mm-hmm.
You're thinking about what that American passport can do for you at the same time while understanding what's happening in your home country and the fact that you're holding the passport for a country that could stop so much of the devastation happening in your country. That is a lot to hold. And I want to get into a little bit more of all of this duality that you experience, but we're going to take a quick break first. And when we come back, I'll continue my conversation with Khadega Mohammed about the silence around the genocide taking place in Sudan and what it's like for her in Metro Detroit trying to raise her voice about it. Stay with us. It's the Metro on WDET. I'm Robyn Vincent. And today we are talking about silence. In Sudan, nearly 14 million people are displaced. It is the largest displacement crisis in the world. The U.S. government has called what's happening there a genocide. A UN fact-finding mission uses the same word, and yet still in this country, there's widespread silence. My guest today is a Sudanese American who's been trying for much of her life to say something about that silence in poetry, in her community organizing, in her work at the Arab American National Museum, where she's the only Sudanese person and the only Black person on staff. Khadega Mohammed, I want to now have you talk to us about one of your poems that it seems has been fueled by the feelings of duality, of being a Sudanese American, of seeing what's happening in Sudan, of feeling powerless against that, of also not feeling necessarily like you are Sudanese, like you are American, like you are a part of the Arab world.
Right.
And I'm thinking specifically about the poem Between. It was pretty foundational to a documentary called Revolution from Afar. You wrote, "Just because I'm between two bodies of water doesn't mean I can't have two shores." Would you recite the poem for us?
Absolutely. Thank you, Robyn. So the poem is called Between. I wrote this in 2019 when the revolution first broke out in Sudan. And so I'm going to refer to Sudan as Azza. You'll hear me saying this word a lot in the poem. Azza was the code word that we used to refer to Sudan when we were colonized by the British, so they didn't know what we were talking about. So this is Between. Ya Azza, I still hate water. This past summer, I just went back to Sudan after 12 years of being gone. After 12 years of trying to figure out where I belong, after 12 years of trying to hold on to my motherland, to my Arabic tongue, my culture, and what I remember of Sudan, trying to hold on to the slowly dissipating memories of home. I didn't know what to expect, didn't know if my family would accept or reject me, didn't know if I was still Sudanese enough. We land in the airport in Khartoum and I rush to the line with a sign above it that says citizens. My eyes glistening with tears of joy that I'm finally back home, or where I thought is home, back to where I was born. And when I got to the counter, I was encountered by an immediate letter of rejection. He asked to see my Sudanese passport to prove my identity, and it didn't dawn on me that my passport was no longer green. Rather, it was navy blue and stamped on it as American Dream. He looked at me and said, "This isn't the line where you belong." He then pointed to the line with a sign above it that said, foreigners. I wanted to scream, no, you're wrong. In America, I also don't belong. So where am I supposed to go when in both lands I can't claim home? Memories immediately flooded back to that one time when I was 6 years old and when my cousins suggested we go swim in the body of water that gave birth to us. I remember darkness all around me when my foot slipped and I fell underneath, struggling to breathe, gasping for air, hoping someone hears my silent screams. No, I'm falling. No, I'm sinking. No, I'm drowning. I was drowning in the Nile, and now I'm still drowning in denial of which identities I'm supposed to be. Drowning in denial of what society tells me. Trying to swim between American and Sudanese, between two lands that were never meant to meet, between chaos and peace, between Nubia Mountains and the Statue of Liberty, between two cultures, two tides, between two mountains that slowly collide, between Arabic tongue and black skin, between Alif Bata and ABC, between black dress and white dope, between pizza and عصيدة بملاحروب, between لا كده عيب and no that's okay, between ووب علي and oh my god, between Wardi and Tupac, between WhatsApp calls and TV screens, between immigrant and citizen, between Arab and not Arab enough, between African and not African enough, between Muslim and not Muslim enough, between lost and found, between somewhere and nowhere, drowning between water and air, because how can I breathe when in both lands I am suffocating? تعرف يا عزة أنا لسه خايفة من الموية. يا عزة, I hate water till this day. Ya Azza, I'm tired of drowning in between. Ya Azza, with you I'm yearning to be. Ya Azza, help me. The wave stopped. I find myself now floating in the Nile. My eyelids felt heavy and I couldn't open them, but I knew my body swayed with a sound. I tried to listen and hear that sound, but somehow my ears were still underwater. I can only hear muffled screams and muffled voices. I can only see suppressed dreams and vibrant darkness. The more the sound grew louder, the more that I tried to lift my head above water. And after years, I decided to just let go. Stop struggling, stop resisting, stop fighting. I let the waves guide me. I let the tides of change take me. My eyes and body all weighed heavy, but I still moved steady. My body moved, my body swayed, my body moved to the shore that now didn't seem too far away. The voices of children, voices of women, voices of Kandaka's future, past and present, the zaghrutas of my habobas, the melody of hope, the lullaby of resistance cradling me back and forth. The voices of those who have awakened the revolution, slowly bringing me to shore. Ya Azza, I am so close. They tried to tie bricks to my ankles to sink me, to stop me, to silence me. But what they didn't know is that you can try to drown bodies, but you can't drown truth. Because I'm still here today. We're still here today. I can hear everything loud and clear. أنا أفريقي وأنا سوداني أنا أفريقي وأنا سوداني أنا أفريقي وأنا سوداني.
We're going to stop there and let folks who'd like to listen to this again and in its entirety search for the poem Between. It is by Khadega Mohammed, who is my guest today. She is a Sudanese American spoken word artist. She leads community engagement at the Arab American National Museum in Dearborn. We've been talking about the war in Sudan, now in its fourth year, and about the silence around it here at home. I'm sorry to cut you off. We don't have a lot of
I'm
time.
so sorry.
Khadija.
I didn't know the cue.
No, that's
I was
okay.
just in it.
You were in it, and you know what? How often do we hear your perspective here on WDET? We don't. We haven't been. And so I want to say to listeners right now that this was a very important moment, and it was important to hear this beautiful poem.
Thank you.
And to understand, I think, the pain that it causes to step in and out of these different identities and not feel as though you can step on sturdy ground into any of them anymore.
Right.
It's the pain of countries lost and immigration and war. And that brings me to something I think we must again highlight. And that is that in January of last year, the U.S. government formally determined that what the Rapid Support Forces are doing in Sudan is genocide. And this past February, a UN fact-finding mission used the same word. When you hear the word genocide used about your country, what does it do to you? And do you think most Americans understand what the declaration actually means?
I don't think so. I don't think most Americans actually understand what that means. And I don't think we understand the gravity of genocide. When we say genocide, that is cleansing of a group of people. That is erasure of a group of people. That is indiscriminate violence against a group of people that have no way to fight back. And that is exactly what's going on in Sudan. That is, it's it feels when I hear the United States referring to this as genocide, it feels hypocritical of the United States to be saying this, to be honest with you, because they are indirectly involved in this. And oftentimes people don't have the moral courage to do anything then and there when we see a genocide happening. We live in the day and age of technology when these genocides are on our phones. We witness everything. But we don't have the moral courage to do anything. Our leaders don't have the moral courage to do anything. And then it's only when that population is wiped out, then we can say, oh, I would have done something.
It's in hindsight.
In hindsight.
This is something that we've seen consistently with atrocities in this world. You work at the Arab American National Museum. You've said you're the only Sudanese person and the only Black person on staff.
That's right.
What does that vantage point show you about how Arab America does and doesn't hold space for Black Arab identity and for Sudan specifically? You're part of the Arab world as a Sudanese person. And I wonder, though, here in Metro Detroit, where there is this very big population of Arab people, and you work again at the Arab American National Museum, do you feel like you belong?
Oh, that is a heavy question. I struggle with that, to be honest with you, in full transparency and truth. I struggle with being the only Black person in many of the spaces that I'm in. I struggle with being the only Sudani. And so when you ask, do I belong in that space? I couldn't answer that. And I just fear that if I wasn't there, I'm not sure much would be happening for Sudan. And so I feel like I have this responsibility on my shoulders, but I also in a way feel tokenized in a lot of ways. But it's a responsibility, and I have no problem always putting Sudan in the room and bringing it to the forefront. And I hope that I can continue to amplify that through all of my work, whether it be at the Arab American National Museum or through my poetry or through my organizing or through whatever capacity that I can. I see that I have that responsibility, even when I'm oftentimes the only person standing in the room as a Sudanese person. I am honored to be able to bring Sudan into the room with me in the spaces that I walk.
Khadega Mohammed is a spoken word artist and leads community engagement at the Arab American National Museum in Dearborn. Her work appears in the documentaries Revolution from Afar and An Act of Worship. We'll link to both on WDET.org. Khadega, thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Robyn.
As Khadega just said, it's a vibe. That was Umri Mabansa by Abdelgadir Salim. That is her uncle. Coming up on the Metro, the Trump administration has been cracking down on immigration. We'll hear about one of their lesser-known tactics to remove people from the country. That's next on the Metro. Stay with us.